Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun runs north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. Get cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
How do you like the new green screen for the studio?
It's pretty rad. With the actual ocean behind us.
For the actual ocean behind us, and if people hear birds and shit, it's because there's birds and shit, and we're doing this at sunset in Costa Rica. All right, so I have 4 questions, but before I forget, Hero BJJ.
Yeah, so we're down in Tamarindo, Costa Rica. Andy and I just got done with a charity camp that I taught down here for Hero Academy. It's a 501(c)(3) based out of the United States, but the actual academy's down here. So Ron Jarman, our friend, runs it, and they put on jiu-jitsu camps throughout the year, and all the money that they raise for those goes to support the kids that train there. They bus them from school directly to the academy, facilitates them being able to get school supplies, leadership training, obviously jiu-jitsu training, and bus them home. So while their parents are at work, they aren't at home. We got to be a part of their Christmas party this year, which was pretty rad. A bunch of gis got donated that were Hero Academy gis, all logoed out and everything. So for these kids, 200 gis, it was the first time they ever had a new gi.
Backpacks, it was like notebooks.
Yeah.
I was able to throw in some rash guards because I had some, not to say that I was trying to be super charitable. I was like, fuck, I can't sell these super small rash guard sizes. I know who needs these, but that was cool to see all of them come in there, and I hope it has a huge impact. How did you find Ron and Hero the first time?
So I started coming down here, I think 8 or 9 years ago, when Henry Akins, my coach, did his first camp down here. Hero wasn't here yet, and then Rome Za founded Hero, and we met him. He was originally down here, and then we started doing some stuff back in the States. We did a couple events at one of my restaurants, DC Cobb's, helped support him and raise money. And then as I went through the ranks and got my black belt, and Ron ended up taking over Hero, we decided to do a 100% charity camp down here. So for my camp, I don't take any money at all. We donate 100%. So 2 years in a row, we've sold it out and been able to donate about 20 grand per year.
Which is ridiculous.
It's
legit.
And it's awesome for them because their expenses being down here are a little bit lower. So I think Ron told us about $4K a month it costs them to operate.
It's 5 months, damn near half their operating costs. That's awesome. All right, so I got 4 questions. All of these are jiu-jitsu related, but I was thinking about it. One of them that didn't come up, but I'm curious. I've asked pretty much every black belt that I know, but what's, in your mind, the most common misconception people have about receiving your jiu-jitsu black belt?
Well, I think that's, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. One, I think everybody but black belts thinks that, well, once you get a black belt, then that just means you know everything. Like,
I've heard the exact opposite from everybody who's ever gotten a black belt.
Yeah.
They're like, son of a bitch, now I have to start learning this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, you get your black belt. I mean, when you're a white belt and you're starting out, I mean, a black belt's like a mythical creature, right? I mean, for me, and I haven't been training that long, about 12 years, but we had a black belt instructor, but then there was one other purple belt in the whole academy, and he trained somewhere else. So, like, when he would come, he'd just destroy everyone. We were all white belts and, like, one blue belt. I was like, I'll never be that good. I'll never be able to do that. And then once you get there, you're like, I'm really not that good. Then you get your black belt, and you're like, I'm really, really not that good.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'd say 99.9% of the black belts that I've encountered say exactly the same thing. And then there's the 0.01% who are like, no, I'm just as good as you think I'm going to be. I pretty much know everything, and I'm here to fucking smack asses and take names.
I mean, even Henry, who you've rolled with a ton, and,
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's right. When I talk to him about it, he's like, he talks about rolling with Hickson and, his experiences of that and all the errors and holes he thinks he has in his game. Meanwhile, most people think I'm pretty decent at jiu-jitsu. I can't score a point on the man.
Yeah. Every time I roll with Henry, he says the same thing. He's like, hey, man, come on. Let's just move around a little bit. That's what he opens with. And then he goes, do you want to start on top? I'm like, why? For the 5 seconds until I'm on the bottom? Like, fuck.
If he starts making the weird noises like, woo, then you're in trouble and you're going to get smashed.
God, it hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. It's so eye-opening, though, as to what is possible in jiu-jitsu. That's what I leave rolling sessions with him with. is this understanding of what's actually possible.
Well, and I've had, it's interesting. My students have asked me before, like, so what's it like when you roll with Henry? Like, it's pretty back and forth or whatever. I'm like, it's like me rolling with new white belts, him rolling with me.
All right, 4 questions. This one actually comes up pretty often. It's about cost. Maybe a short answer for Florida Friday someday, but why is jiu-jitsu so goddamn expensive? It's like the rich man's martial art, but then all those rich guys tell everyone else they should do jiu-jitsu. I feel like it's a glitch in the matrix.
I don't think jiu-jitsu is expensive at all.
I don't either.
Most gyms have a trial day at minimum, some a week, some a month, all kinds of gyms. My gym used to run, $99 trials for a month or Christmas specials. I mean, at most, our gym, if you have no contract, your month to month on everything is $220 a month. I'd go back to the idea of what's the cost of not training and the possibility of, you getting attacked or something else happened. And I think you can relate to this too. I had a very different friend group before I started training jiu-jitsu. I still have friends, of course, that don't train, but most of my friends train, and they're people I met through jiu-jitsu, or I've talked my friends into training, or they've discovered it, on their own. Most places, we offer a 6-month membership for $1,000. I don't think $1,000 for 6 months of training is that much. And you can buy a gi on Amazon for $70 or $60. You don't have to go buy, a Wanderlust travel gi or, something else, unless you're training at one of these gyms that requires you to buy the full kit.
Oh, the gym specific, that's right.
Yeah, and I would, generally steer you away from that unless it's your only option. If that's the gym's goal is to just make money off you, I do get that. And, we live on opposite sides of the country, and I think the costs are pretty relatable. I'm sure places like LA, some places it can be more expensive, but, people will tell me they think something's expensive, and then they're sitting at a bar spending $150 a night to drink vodka they could get for $20 at home.
Yeah, I was trying to think about the price structure in Kalispell. I mean, the medium income in Kalispell is probably somewhere between $30,000 to $40,000 for a single income earner. Probably double that if it's a dual family income. But $200, what value are you getting from the $200? Because I think it's about the same at the SBG gyms, and yeah, I mean,
well, I know it's pretty.
I
know it's pretty similar because Travis helped me set up my pricing structure. Kind of what they did. Yeah, Starbucks, cable, all kinds of other things.
Or eating out twice a month is going to be the same thing. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head with what's the price of not being prepared if something does happen.
Well, and I think people get this warped mind, like they get this Planet Fitness model. Well, I can belong to Planet Fitness for $18 a month, or I don't know, whatever it is. Everyone I know who belongs to Planet Fitness doesn't go there.
That's their business model.
Yeah, they don't want people that train. So
their business model. I know a guy who used to be a manager there. He could open a drawer and it was just racks of IDs that people had paid in full for, and they never came to get them. And the guy was like, "These are the clients we want."
Yeah, 100%. Whereas, if you don't show up to a gym that's run well, you're getting a phone call like, "Hey, Andy, what's going on? Haven't seen you in a couple days. Just making sure you're okay. Want to make sure you're getting back in here."
I'm trying to think about it. I mean, I've only been at it for just over 4 years. Not all of my closest friends, because I obviously had a large amount of time before jiu-jitsu. But the people I spend the most time with now, I mean, look, we're in Costa Rica. We've come here multiple times. You and I basically travel all around the world to fight each other. It's ridiculous. We could just go and visit each other.
We don't go on any trips where there's not some component of jiu-jitsu, right? Even when we went to Hawaii to go diving, we're still finding a place to train.
God, I'm trying to think. I can't remember the last time I actually did a trip where I didn't train. It's just such a naturally ingrained part of my life now, and especially being married to Leah, who she is a coach, and it's what she does professionally. It's all of my closest friends constantly are trying to break my limbs and choke me. Yeah, I deeply appreciate it, actually. All right, where'd it go? All right, I've been a listener since episode 1. That's a long time, and hopefully it's improved since then. On your show and others, I have heard tales of the dark arts of jiu-jitsu, and today, finally, I've made the decision I'd like to learn about it and book my first class at a martial arts gym. What's the best piece of advice you'd have for a soon-to-be brand new white belt?
So, I think that's a pretty broad question. First off, it depends on where you live. Do you live in an area like, even where I live, there's gyms 15 minutes in multiple directions. So you got to find a gym that fits what you want. And, I used to be pretty hardcore on kind of my way was the way it had to be. If you're not learning self-defense, practical jiu-jitsu, you're wasting your time. I've totally done a 180 on that. If you're training anything, I think it's worthwhile. And if you want to compete a bunch, it's probably a different school for you. But you know, I mean, there's all the cliche stuff, tap early, tap often, you know, don't be in a rush, whatever. I'd say the biggest thing is to protect yourself from getting hurt, because if you're off the mats, you're not training, you're not getting better, and I'm sure you've seen it, I definitely have seen it, and we try to do our best to shield. Mainly we try to shield new people from themselves, not from other people hurting them, but them hurting themselves, trying to twist out of stuff, do things they shouldn't. And, you know, it's obviously something you see a lot more with males because the ego is a lot higher.
Yeah.
I think, you know, and I'd be interested to hear Leah's perspective on this, I think it's way easier to coach women. They're much more coachable, they listen better,
they don't come from a physical world in the way that guys do. Like, my old job was so physically demanding, and it was like a daily fucking unzip your fly dick measuring contest.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're going to go into the gym and we're going to work out and we're going to compete. Oh, we're going to go to the range and we're going to shoot and we're going to compete.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to put these fucking boxing gloves on, which we don't even know how to put on properly, and beat the shit out. It was completely male dominated, and so the physicality drives the whole thing. And yeah, when I owned a CrossFit gym, they're more they listen. That's step fucking one. They actually. Men, I think it goes in their ears too, and they're like, whatever, bro. I read about this in Men's Fitness. They listen, and then they'll do what you say.
Yeah, and I've heard Mickey talk about that too, Carry Trainer, that when he teaches firearms instruction, that like he can take brand new shooters who are women and really get them to do a bunch of stuff and elevate, whereas guys who've barely shot just want to pretend like they know stuff, and he can't get them to listen.
Yeah. If somebody goes to a sport-based jiu-jitsu school, do you think that they need to be reminded from time to time that some of the principles that they're learning would not be best to try in it? And I hate the real world environment, but the type of jiu-jitsu that you learned from Henry and that you model your coaching after, because I've spent fucking hours at your gym now and we've trained together a bunch, they're the same, and it is definitely like foundationally based. Does this work in a confrontation? Does this work in a fight? Am I safe? Can I create distance? Can I access tools? Sport-based jiu-jitsu, I mean, the Hawaii trip that we went on. I had a great time at the gym. I'm not saying anything negative. We roll in there, the guy's like, hey, I'm teaching a half guard class. And it's like, well, I kind of like half guard. So I'm interested to see what you learn. And I'm not a leg lock player. I have an understanding of it to try to keep myself safe and try to avoid early on. But I would say it was a much more sport-centric half guard class that we were taught for sure. And if you tried any of that in the street, you would get your teeth knocked down the back of your fucking throat.
Yeah, 100%.
So what's the balance there in reminding people that, hey, if you're looking at this as only a sport, rock on?
I think as long as your students know that's what they're learning and that's what they want to learn, it's fine. I mean, it's not everyone has to do what we want to do. For me, that's why I started training, and I wanted to fight and do MMA and do those things. And, you know, my first coach, Mike Budnick, used to have a 2-part rule. Will it work on someone bigger and stronger than me? And will it work if someone's trying to punch me in the face? And I still try to just abide by that. And, you know, there's nothing wrong. I think leg locks are fun. I like to play around with them a little bit. You know, I told you before, blue, purple belt, I did a ton of them.
Yeah.
It's something I'm kind of not getting back into, but trying to understand better, because the new wave stuff I'm not great with. You know, I just think you've got to figure out why are you here? What's your why? If your goal is that you want to be able to defend yourself and defend your family, then I think you need to think about where you're training.
Yeah, the new school stuff, certainly a lot of it looks cool. Like from the outside, you're like, holy shit, those guys are just transitioning through position. And I'm certainly not, like I said, I'm not a lower body player. I want to understand enough to stay safe. But in my limited experience, I have watched that pressure-based style wilt a lot of the movement-based and the inversion-based and rotational-based stuff.
And some of that stuff needs someone to also scramble with you in order to facilitate what they want to do. So that's a different feeling too. I mean, we've talked about that, rolling with some of those guys and experienced some of it in our travels of, wow, if I just kind of lean on this person, it tends to shut down their game because I'm not willing to move real fast and do, you know, all the things they want to do. And, you know, at my gym, you know, we train once a week with small gloves and spar and stand up and do everything, and you get to find out, you know.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes you think you can't get punched in the face, or people think they can't and they find out they can.
Like, ooh, I don't know if I like this position as much. What, going back to the white belt, what would you, like somebody brand new, what kind of expectation would you say for somebody in their first 6 months? Like, what should they expect?
I mean, it's just a ass beating for 6 months, right? I mean, if you want to do it right and you get obsessed with it like you did or I did or a lot of people.
It's still an ass beating for 6 months. You're looking at ceiling tiles.
Yeah, you're just looking at ceiling tiles, getting smashed, trying to pick some stuff up. And if you have some wrestling background or something, like, my stepdaughter's boyfriend, Felipe, who's with us this week, he's not trained much, good wrestling background, strong kid, and you ask him, how's it going? It's like, I'm getting my ass kicked. Well, that's how it's supposed to be, and that's what's going to happen, even if you are strong and athletic and all of that stuff. And, you've got to be willing to take that, and then, like I said, not get injured. You've got to be willing to tap and not struggle. And then that depends on your age, too, right? At our age, it's different, the way that we recover and the things that our bodies can do.
I got out of bed today, and my hip was like ah!
Well, some of the Americana stuff I taught this week, I talked about. I mean, if you pin my arm and get under it, okay, I'm tapping.
Yeah.
That's it, or it's tearing.
I've been off the mats, I think, twice. Once was from a Kimura.
Yeah, the day I met you, or the week I met you,
sling.
You were in a sling.
And and I was there to watch the seminar, and I do agree that if you are injured, you can definitely go and pick stuff up, but god damn it, it's emotionally difficult to sit there and watch people doing something you want to do, and you're like, fuck, this is 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I admire the hell out of people that can still come to class injured and watch and retain stuff and ask questions. I was never able to do that for a couple of reasons. One, and the main reason is, I would convince myself that I would find a way to work around it and still try to train.
I'll just hold on to my belt. Yeah, that injury that I had, I think I probably should have taken 6 to 8 weeks off. I was back on the mats like 3 weeks later with my hand in my belt.
Yeah, of course.
And and then it's like, no, I don't like this position. I'll just use my hand just for a second. And then you're like, son of a bitch. Yeah, it's the worst. Getting injured, those setbacks. Denver's going through it right now. Like, he's kind of dealing with some injuries, and you can just tell he wants to roll so bad, and he just can't. And
he's done a good job of, like, he did a lot of the drills this week, and then he did kind of some flowy rolls with Mickey and some other people where he, like, picked his deliberate partners, and even as a white belt, he recognizes, like, hey, I know this person is safe. I know this person is safe. That guy that hurt me, he's probably not safe.
Yeah, definitely probably not safe. Yeah, and he has enough tools now where he can protect himself in most of the situations. That was one of the hardest phases for me to get through, is I just didn't understand what was happening. Like, I would get trapped, I would get caught. I'm like, I feel like I'm totally fucked here, but I don't exactly know where the bear trap is going to come from.
Yeah, that's the big thing, because everything seems like a mistake, right? And you don't know which way to turn or not turn or what's in or out. And then you got higher level people that are kind of tricking you, pretending like they want to do one thing, so you turn into them or away from them. And
yeah, you're like, oh, they just opened a door for me. It's like, yeah, because they want you to go through it, asshole. All right, so speaking of wrestling background, so coming from a college wrestling background, just curious what our thoughts are on somebody transitioning into jiu-jitsu.
Stay away. I don't want you.
God, they should have to wear a sign. Should I be trying to learn every move in the book and throw shit at the wall until something sticks, or capitalize on the wrestling background and build a jiu-jitsu game off of that?
I mean, grappling is grappling on some level. You see all these weird arguments and sub-threads online about Sambo versus BJJ, and people talking about American Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I mean,
the Sambo where they wear the shoes and the gi top?
Yeah.
Super odd pairing, but I mean, I'm not a fashion.
Yeah, and I don't know the rules, but I think there's things that are allowed and aren't allowed. I know some guys that have done some Sambo competitions. But anyways, I mean, grappling's grappling. You should use your wrestling, but if you rely solely on your wrestling, you're going to have a hard time getting your BJJ to work, because your wrestling is so far ahead. And a good wrestler is going to be able, even against the black belt, if we start standing, probably most black belts, to take them down. They're going to understand, some weight distribution and pressure. And you look at, some of the guys like Nicky Rod and his brother, who, I mean, they're training full-time and a ton now and for years, but with very minimal jiu-jitsu experience, are going to the biggest tournaments in the world at ADCC and Inogi and, killing people.
Didn't Nicky win as a blue belt?
I don't know if he won. He might have won trials. I think he got silver at ADCC.
But he was just barbecuing motherfuckers.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, Denver and I were there with Henry this year watching it, and it's awesome. But yeah, I mean, I would lean into the wrestling thing, but we have a lot of wrestlers at our gym, and I think your jiu-jitsu is so far behind that if you don't learn to try to rely on it, it's never going to catch up. But your takedown game, I mean, I wouldn't be trying to learn a bunch of judo and other stuff. I'd be concentrating on that. And how does wrestling fit in? Okay, let's take people down past the guard, super top pressure oriented, and smash people, which is, all of what I want to do anyway.
I don't know a lot about wrestling. I don't know the rules of it at all. But in my experience, rolling with people who have a wrestling background, especially early on, they're allergic to having their back touch the ground. So they're great on that, like, grind into you. But if you can get them flipped on their back, they're like a turtle that's stuck and they don't like it. and it's definitely the deficiency in their game, but they don't want to go there because it's ingrained in them that if their back touches the ground, they have to get off of it.
Well, you realize that, people start wrestling at like 3, 4, 5 years old. They're doing that, and then like some of my students, like Derek, starts training jiu-jitsu in his late 40s. It's pretty tough, something you've been doing that long, and he was a wrestling coach.
But he recognizes that, and he'll
100%.
play off of his back.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, yeah, if you could go into the gym and first off, there's never been any room that I'm able to murk. It's just like, I'm going to dominate all of you in stand-up. It's like...
Well, and all of our high school-aged kids that come in that are like, what more can I do? I'm like, go out for wrestling. Go out for wrestling. You're 14, be a wrestler. And then bring that in here and combine it, and you're going to have some really good results.
My stand-up is by far my weakest aspect.
Mine too.
And I am so incredibly jealous of those wrestling bastards who come in there.
Yeah.
And then all I try to do is get them on their back like a turtle. So I roll with Jim Miller, the UFC fighter. I thought I had swept him twice. I had two things going in my favor. Actually, one big one. We were wearing a gi. I grabbed hold of that motherfucker and just drug him into my guard. And I scissor swept him. I have never seen somebody's hips turn back over so quickly. And after the second time I tried, I'm like, I'm not even going to try to sweep you anymore. Because I had the full scissor sweep, and he just went in the air and landed back. I'm like, holy shit.
That's
the only thing that
awesome.
saved me is that his grip burned out. All right, this one's about competition, and I think you're a good person to ask about this because you're very active competitively, and you have a lot of people who are active a little bit longer. So, a little background, 2-stripe white belt, enrolled in an executive jiu-jitsu program. And I'm not, read AARP, it's an elder statesman. Mostly middle-aged men with families, full-time jobs. So these are not professional fighters. Busy schedule who gather at 0500 2 days a week to roll. 43 and picked up BJJ about 2 years ago, which is right about the age that I picked it up as well. Worst possible timing, but it's become a foundational pillar in his life. Recently, we've had a migration of younger guys get some extra training sessions in with the older guys. I admire their drive and willingness to get up and train so early, and they've helped me push the pace during live training. However, it has raised a small issue. I have never had the desire to compete until I started training with these younger guys that do compete. I know that competition is great, but I go to the early class because it's really the only time of my day that I can fit in training. I don't want to give up time with my family to train more in preparation. And if I'm honest, I have some apprehension about going to competition or about going competition speed with people that I don't know. I imagine full speed at my gym with people you know, and competition speed with strangers is very different. Injury is something I do my best to avoid. I have a laundry list of small but very real injuries accrued through 12 years of an EOD tech and 2 tours to Iraq and 2 to Afghanistan. I know you can't make the decision for me. I just want to get your opinion about older BJJ guys competing. What do you think are the possible benefits versus the drawback? Follow-up question. I remember you mentioning that you wanted to compete, but I don't know if you ever did. If you have any experience competing, how did you find the experience? So I can answer that second. What are your thoughts?
So first off, a lot of what he's saying is true. I mean, I don't go enter adult divisions anymore, but that's the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is even at the world championship level, you can compete against guys that are your age. So, 40-year-old guys, especially at lower belts, maybe at black belt, there's a lot of guys that do it for a living, but 40-year-old white belts going to a competition, those guys all have jobs, families, stuff they want to go
They're hobbyists
into.
at best.
Yeah. I've been tapped in tournaments. I don't know how many times, but enough that I don't remember how many times. I don't have any injuries that I can think of offhand that have come from tournaments. People are generally respectful. As long as you understand when to tap and how to tap, it's not, you're not seeing guys get their arms, legs, whatever ripped off. And, they do have medics there. There are people getting hurt, but, Masters Worlds, there's like 8,000 or 9,000 people there. I see the medics working on people. There's not an abundance of people getting worked on.
And let's be clear, most of those people, if they do get hurt, they are taking it too far.
Well, or they were already hurt, right?
Yeah.
Like, what tends to happen is a guy who's got a knee that's already totally screwed up and already had surgery and has a knee brace tries to Uchimata somebody in the super heavyweight division and blows out his own knee.
Or they're clearly caught in an armbar,
Yeah.
and normally they would have tapped with a regular training partner, and now they're like fighting it for this heroic, and then it does catch, and all the slack is out. And
Yes,
that's
of course.
not. It's not the person you're rolling against. It's not his job to tap.
Yeah.
It's your job to tap.
And
so I think a lot of that in that competition setting comes from people's desire to not want to quit.
We do have a lot of students that compete. It wasn't always that way. I mean, for a while, it was just me going to competitions. And then Katie started coming to some, Derek started coming to some, and now I think Chicago Open, we had like 30 people compete. It's fun to compete with a team. It's fun to have your coaches there. I'm a highly competitive person. I mean, we're out racing golf carts around Tamarindo or, whatever we can do for fun. I think it's a camaraderie that goes with that, being able to train with a team and do that. But if someone doesn't want to compete, I don't think that's a huge deal either because they're worried about their health or they don't have the time, the commitment, whatever it may be. But that's something to look at too. What are you afraid of? I mean, there's small competitions that are local in most areas. I know in your area there's not a ton, but your gym has one that they put on to make up for that. So I think everybody should try it, but I don't force anybody to compete. And I think, if the age thing is a concern, that's why they have Masters Division. No one's saying you need to go do the adult absolute at your local tournament. Then
it's not wise in your 40s.
Yeah.
You're going to get what you were seeking out if you go into the adult division in your 40s.
Yeah. I mean, generally, I'll do absolute divisions if I medal at an IBJJF because it's fun. And again, I'm just not that worried about, getting hurt. I know where my limits are. Just like we talked about the Americana. If somebody pins my arm and is about to lock it up, it's over for me. I'm not going to, take 100-to-1 shot of spazzing out. I'm just tapping and I'll go on. It's also not, anything I do is important to me, and everything I do with 100% effort, but I'm also realistic about things. I mean, I'm not winning ADCC here.
Yeah. For the person that wrote this, the one thing that stuck out to me is that they're having feelings of apprehension about competition, and I think that's actually good. I think that's something that you should actually lean into, and that you have nothing to lose. Like, obviously, said in the email, we can't make the choice for you, but I would say go and compete one time, and if you like facing that apprehension, and you feel that it's going to enhance your game, then stick with it. And if you don't like it, then move on. I mean, there's nothing to be lost.
Yeah, look, every competition I do seems like a good idea when I sign up. And as I'm training for it, it seems like a good idea. And then about a week out, I'm like, oh, man, why did I do this? And then like the day before, because I'm usually cutting a little bit of weight or whatever, I'm like, this is so dumb. And then right before, I'm like, why did I talk myself into this? I'm not doing this anymore. And then the second we slap hands, I'm like, hell yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. Win or lose. I have a great time out there. I love cornering people, coaching people. That's a great time too. Yep. And if no one at his school is competing, it's probably not as fun, but I'd gather that whatever school he's at, there are other people. And, especially if we can get a group of guys from, his executive class that want to do it. It doesn't have to be a ton, 2 or 3 of them, and they can get ready and work on takedowns and work on the point system and, whatever else they want to. Find a local competition, get a coach to go with them, and go have some fun.
That's how I'm going to refer to my jiu-jitsu from here on out. I do executive jiu-jitsu. It's kind of an awesome description. Yeah, so to the second part, I competed once at a Naga right when I had gotten my purple belt. I enjoyed it. But I also, one thing that I have noticed is that people have really large amounts of performance anxiety.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that is because, like at a normal open mat, like I'm just completely lost in the role that I'm doing. And it is a little bit different at a competition. Everybody is watching you, and I feel like that could nerd some people out. I'm at a point in my life where I just truly don't give a shit, but I think it does increase that performance anxiety, and I have seen some people vapor lock, and I think if they continue to do that more, they would work through that, and it would really improve their game.
Well, I think it takes time, too. I mean, my wife, Katie, got silver at Masters Worlds this year. She's had some really dismal performances at the World Championships and Pan Ams and everything else. And one of the things I would always say to her when we're training, I'm like, at the gym, if you can roll like this in competition, you're going to murder people.
Yeah.
And it just took a while, and it took her doing some smaller tournaments to not kind of, like you said, vapor lock and freeze up, where I'm like, I don't know why you would do that or not do this or whatever. And once she kind of got out of her own head and got coachable on some stuff, she went out there and did great.
I enjoyed it because it was an unknown. Like I've even rolled enough with people at Alpha now that I know their game and they know my game.
Yeah.
So it becomes, it's not like it's necessarily a known quantity because you're both working your way through what's going on. But man, standing across from somebody you've never met is definitely, you're like, I wonder how this fucking thing's going to go.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you see stuff where it's like, I've had students run into stuff where they're like, I've never had anyone do spider guard because we don't have a lot of that at our gym. Or I've never had anyone do a lasso guard or whatever. So we got to spend some time when we get back working on it or, whatever. But you never know what you're going to get. And that's also part of the cool part.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I I think I would enjoy competing more because it'd give me an additional thing to do with Leah because she still wants to compete. She's competed a lot coming up.
Multiple-time world champion.
My schedule is so weird that it's tough for me to block off and be like, okay, for a month, this is what I'm going to focus on because I have to say yes to a lot of other things that come up. And I don't know if I would like to compete at the Masters level just because I enjoy it. I enjoy competition. I came from a community of people. I mean, Jesus, everything was a competition. What kind of burrito did you get? Carne asada with rice. I'll take what he got plus 10%. You're just like, for my entire life. So it has been enjoyable for sure.
And I don't think there's any negative aspect to it unless, I guess the first question was about cost. Tournaments are usually $100 to $200. Maybe that's prohibitive to some people.
And probably travel and hotel, so that's going to cost a little bit more. But like you said, it's also optional though too. And maybe there's local, like the Gorilla Cup is the one that SBG does up in Kalispell. I think they do it twice a year. It's mostly kids, but there's hundreds of kids. And so that's a great exposure at a much lower cost. And they actually, the money they do make off it, they put it right back into their fund so they can have other people travel. So yeah, it's like a win-win. And all your friends are sitting there watching you, which is the exact opposite of open mat when nobody's paying attention to shit.
Well, and I think a lot of gyms do inter-squad tournaments. Not something we've ever done, but I love the idea. I think it's a super good way to get people, and I think I've heard the Gorilla Cup described this way too, is like it's a good way for people to get their feet wet in competition, compete against each other. And you guys have multiple gyms in that area, so you've got people coming up and people even flying in for it, which that's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's like zero consequence. You're basically just there with your normal training partners and friends, but you're learning the rules. That's another one that's actually, I really like that tournament too, is you learn the rules.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know the rules, you might do some shit you're not allowed to do.
You might be a purple belt in half guard and go for a knee bar and think you won a match.
And you're going to stand up like this, and the ref's going to go like this. And you're like, but why? He tapped. It's like, yeah, you can't do that. Perfect, dude. We're right at 30 minutes. What do you want to close with? Where can people? So you guys train in your gym is in Woodstock, which for people who don't know, it's where Groundhog Day was filmed. It's fucking
where Groundhog Day,
like literally where it was filmed. We walk out of your gym to get to the Starbucks and like go around the.
I got an email today that we were voted one of the merriest main streets in the country. So we've got that going. I always have a festival going.
It's a suburb of Chicago. It's like northwest, right?
Yeah, northwest suburbs, Woodstock, Illinois, 25,000 people. Alpha BJJ is the name of my gym, so you can find us at Alpha BJJ on Instagram. My personal Instagram's Dan_T_Hart, HART.
And this seminar that you taught this year is already up, right? So
it is up. It is live. We've sold about 10 spots already. Again, 100% of the money goes to charity. We do a bunch of cool stuff down here together, and there's a bunch of stuff you can go out and do. A lot of people bring their kids, families, husbands with wives that don't train, and vice versa. So it's really a fun time.
Where can they sign up for that?
HeroBJJ.com, I believe, is their website, or if you just Google Hero BJJ, you can go right on there. And until December 31st, if you enter the code SmilinDan150, you get $150 off.
Yeah, it's well worth the money. I think this is my third trip here with Leah. We're coming back. All of us are coming back in April for your coach for Henry. But what I will say, if people want to come here, is book your travel early. I may or allegedly have not had an experience where the price of tickets, especially at the tail end of the year, goes up by thousands of dollars to the point where you're like, hey, Dan, you know that time I was going to come to Costa Rica with you? We're not going to do that. So, cool, man. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Easy.